Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. This is Najib Qazi and you're watching Washington Roundtable. I'm very honored and blessed to have someone of my mentor who I have always looked up to, and it's like a dream come true that I am joined by someone who does not need any introduction and has a great depth on several subjects. But today we will be talking to him, his journey as a journalist, and what is his point of view, what Kashmir future will hold. And I'm very grateful and thankful to Mateen, a senior journalist, my mentor, and a thinker. I call him a philosopher. Amar bhai, thank you for being on the show, and welcome to Voice of Kashmir.
Thank you very much for your kind words. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate you. I follow your work, and what a great work you're doing at Voice of Kashmir, for Kashmir in general and Kashmir in particular. So I'm a great admirer and a fan of your channel. So should we keep it bilingual or whatever you suggest?
I would say keep it in English because
Okay,
that's
okay,
where
okay, okay.
we
So thank you for having me on the television. I would call it a television. And I must say that I've known you, with full disclosure, that I've known you for a long time. I'm always very proud of you, and I see your work on interfaith also and on Kashmir. So I'm very, very proud of you.
thank you very much, and it's all because that I haven't, from the childhood we have looked up to you the way that you have, mashallah, carry yourself out in the field of journalism. Uh, Question is, when our youth is growing up in Pakistan, as Kashmiri, as Pakistani, generally people are more in, they either probably look into going into Pakistan Army or maybe CSS. Why did you end up falling into this field of journalism?
Well, in my case, I'd say that I can do anything else. I was great for journalism, and I always wanted to be a journalism. And I came into journalism at a very early age, perhaps one of the earliest ages. I was the only one in my newspaper. I started with the Nation way back in 1985, and I was the only one who had not done his, even my graduation was not complete. I was going to college during daytime and come to my office in the evening. So I started as an intern and then never went back. Kept on with this. I've also been very lucky to be in journalism because it's something that I have a feeling that it's my passion and what I like to do, and yet I get paid for it. So it's more of a profession, more of a passion than a profession.
Excellent. Uh, Going towards the Kashmir issue, I know you have studied it, done lot of, written lot of articles on this. Uh, what do you make of this current situation in Kashmir? We have a struggle that has been going on for about 73 years, but we are still circling in the same cocoons and not getting any results out of it. How do you see this entire situation before I ask you any particular question?
I think it's been 70 plus years, and I mean, depends on the solution that you are looking for, and it also depends where you're coming from. Solution by even in Pakistan be different for people in Azad Kashmir and Pakistan, and then in occupied Kashmir and India. So it depends on what kind of solution you're looking for. Right now, the immediate solution, short-term solution that is needed is that it's not just a Kashmir issue or a political issue; it is a humanitarian issue, and the kind of atrocities that are going on in the last 2 years, particularly after 5th August 2 years ago, that's monumental. I don't think in recent times there has been a tragedy bigger than Kashmir. and yet it is not talked about as much, and it is not discussed as much, and it is not on the radar like many other issues of its gravity. So right now the solution would be that there should be less atrocities and a certain degree of calmness and peace in Kashmir, and that is that's a more urgent need than for any midterm and long-term solution. So I must say I've always been a peacenik, and I've always wanted peace between India and Pakistan, and I've been part of many backdoor diplomatic initiatives, and since the coming of Modi and since August 5, the hopes for a durable and short term peace are not very high. So despite my hopes for I mean my real feeling to have peace between India and Pakistan. I don't see the scope of any peace in the near future, and it is actually going worse and worse every day. So the idea would be to halt that progression into negative tendencies.
If I were to ask you that, in your experience and what you have seen over the years, who do you hold responsible for all this mess in the region? Is it the non-seriousness of Kashmiri leadership, particularly the people of Kashmir on this side of the line of control, who are in the power and they have always used Kashmir issue as as a selling point to win the elections, and they're not doing anything? Or is it the failure of Kashmiri diaspora that is abroad? Or is it the non-seriousness of the two countries that on one hand they're claiming that they want peace with each other, but on the other hand you see things happening repugnant to what they are claiming on the ground?
I think it's not so simplistic, and there have been various phases on the Kashmir front in the last 70 plus years. There have been good times and bad times and worse times, and there's no one particular group that you can blame for the mess in Kashmir. So all may have played their role in getting to the situation that we are in. So yes, but at the same time, you could you can't take out the power quotient out of it.
Hmm.
The muscle part of it. Uh, that in this day and age, it is not easy or possible, even possible, to get issues resolved through militant ways or through wars. You see, so I wouldn't blame one particular class. All may have played uh, good and bad roles in various phases, but the current situation, it is very easy to blame BJP and Narendra Modi for making the mess that exists right now. So in the present context, yes, you can say, and it may not be, of course, it's a great tragedy going on there, but the same time, I think by default, he may have done a lot of wrong for India and good for Kashmiris. That since 5th August, I think it is more in the limelight, and now since the he didn't, I think, see the China factor.
Hmm.
You see, he was just thinking about Pakistan and suppressing Kashmir and his domestic voters, and he did not consider how China would react. And by Eastern Ladakh becoming a virtual war zone now since that it's becoming for as Indians keep saying, that's now a two-front war. It's not about LOC, it's the factor of LAC coming into play. It's I think that's one factor that may have been a game changer, and which has made I think Modi to withdraw a little, and is yet to see that how much he will withdraw and how much it will not be for Kashmiris, it will be for the larger international and regional context.
So slightly we'll go back in the history and see the way whenever there is a dialogue between India and Pakistan and have a negotiation, including the Shimla Accord and whatnot. Uh, do you think there was a mistake on the part of both countries by not including Kashmiris themselves in the negotiation or in the discussion?
No, I think the Shimla, if you have to go back, those are is considered. There's almost a consensus that it was a great, diplomatic success for Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in Pakistan. I mean, the circumstances were so bad. We had 90,000 prisoners, and we didn't have many cards to play. And under the circumstances, to get the deal that he got was not such a bad deal
Hmm.
for Pakistan. But I would say that the more damaging has been the Agra, initiative. That was when Musharraf went on to talk with India without including the Kashmiris. So that may have caused more uh, resentment not just in Kashmir among the Kashmiris, but it also damaged our case at the United Nations because you see before Agra. Uh, Whenever there was a resolution on Kashmir, most Muslim countries, OIC countries, and many non-aligned countries would support the case of Pakistan and Kashmir. But when we try to have a agreement with India without involving the Kashmiris, so people then it's not been the case like that since then, and we do not get as many votes. And last time I was at the United Nations session and I talked to a number of people, and there was an opinion that when you talk to those Muslim countries who voted for Kashmir earlier, they say that you didn't ask us when you tried to have an argument. You didn't talk to the Kashmiris, so that may have damaged us diplomatically more than Shimla, I would say.
So, don't you think when we start signing these bilateral issues with India and Pakistan, and that undermines the UN resolution and keeping the UN out of the equations because now it has become a bilateral issue?
Actually, it's a long debate that whether and it's not just happened in the last few years. It's been going on forever. That whether we should have trade first and talks later, or talks first and then and trade later. But after 5th August, I think this debate is over. It is very difficult for Pakistan to go ahead with, normalization with India or have any, let alone have a trade agreement or any kind of relationship with India, and that's what we are doing because there is so much pressure, domestic pressure on Pakistan's part. There is the moral responsibility, and also because so much it's so bad, atrocities, the scale of atrocities in Kashmir, but Kashmir is so bad that it's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's out of question at this moment.
Correct. Speaking of these casualties that take place across the line of control and the atrocities that is being committed, one of the shortfall that we face, particularly I would say that is in the field of journalism, uh, we see lack of statistics. The atrocities and the casualties happening more than they are being reported, either on the line of this side of line of control or the other side. The sniper attacks or the insurgencies or casualties that are gone unreported. Um, what do you suggest, especially to the our journalist community that I know it costs money and I'm just going to make my question a little longer because I was discussing with one of the government official in Azad Kashmir. They have a dedicated budget, for the freedom movement. Where they are supposed to spend money on the research and bring the facts and figures. That does not happen. I don't see any data coming.
I have to tell you a personal example. I got this chance to visit Srinagar a few years ago,
Yeah.
and I met all strata of people, journalists, politicians, and there was this group of people that I had to see. And I asked them, everybody wanted to discuss Pakistan with me, and I asked them what would you like to me to take back the message home. And the biggest grievance they had was that, because they watch Pakistani television every day, all of Pakistani channels are watched on cable and now through social media also. So the biggest grievance was that issue of Kashmir is not covered in Pakistan as much as they would like. One, it's not covered, not to the expectations that they had from Pakistan. Also, the coverage is so bad. They said it breaks their heart that most people in Pakistan they have no understanding of the Kashmir issue, and even it hurts them more when they see the so-called experts on Pakistan television and the Kashmir Research Center and those Kashmir television people that they see, that sometimes even the scholars, so-called scholars, do not have basic understanding. We get that feeling. That's what they said. They said we get the feeling that you have no idea about the reality of Kashmir, the basics and fundamentals of Kashmir. So that breaks their heart, and it's a sad reality that one, there is an issue of capacity that we do not understand. Even most journalists and researchers have a very limited knowledge of Kashmir issue and the reality of Kashmir, and also there is also commercial side to it. Let's face it, television channels, they are run by commercialism. So commercial things matter more, and they have, somehow it's a sad reality that Kashmir is not covered as much as our Kashmiri brethren and sisters would like to
Because
see.
uh, there was another concern from the people of Kashmir, particularly from the other side, which is under Indian occupation. And the concern was that Pakistan occasionally flip flops its policies. Prime Minister makes a statement that Kashmiris would be given an independence, and the next day the Foreign Office gives the statements contrary to what previous day it was a statement in a public arena. That shows that the lack of seriousness on Pakistan effort, because once a statement goes out from a politician or a person of authority from this side, and then the next day they feel that their emotion was being played, how would you respond to that?
I think this is more of a question of capacity than Pakistan flip flopping, as you said. Its policy. The whole issue when Imran Khan said that once the Kashmir is free, we would like to ask people of Kashmir that would they like to be part of Pakistan or would they like to be an independent Kashmir. I think people didn't understand, and it was not such a faux pas by the Prime Minister. It's just people, the lack of understanding by the people. It is part of our constitution. It is written in the 1973 Constitution that once the Kashmir issue is resolved, we give that choice to the people of Kashmir to decide. And I think most people in occupied Kashmir, they like to put this issue to be decided later, because this brings in a division, and this has been a division in the past and which was exploited by India. So I think it's more people's understanding of the Kashmir issue. It was not such a big mistake as people thought.
Uh, what message do you have for the Kashmiri diaspora abroad towards playing their role in apprising the world about the Kashmir issue so we can get to some sort of a conclusive mark?
And, perhaps I'd like to be modest about it. It's not my place to lecture Kashmiri diaspora. They are more enlightened. They are more you see they have a better understanding of Kashmir issues than we have in Pakistan. But one thing I like to particularly point out and emphasize is to focus more on the humanitarian side of it. The political side comes later, and there are power factors that are also big determinants, in resolving these issues. So the humanitarian side, always, like for example, the Kashmir issue, it was not a Muslim issue. People forget that it was a humanitarian issue that got the attention of the world. For example, not many people know that my, for example, childhood hero, Lala, who hijacked a plane. She was a big, charismatic, was a Christian. Hanan Ashrafi is a Christian, and you, as an expert of interfaith, would understand that this brings the humanitarian side of the Kashmir issue, brings people more attention to the Kashmir cause than the political side of it. Because the political side, people may have different views on it. This divides the attention of the public and at large.
I couldn't agree more in terms of harmonious communities living in Kashmir for centuries. People practicing different faiths, and with the recent attempt by some of those characters who tried to dismantle this unity that we had in Kashmir. We have Sikhs, Hindus, Pandits, and we've been living together for centuries. We never had these issues in terms of creating rifts between the communities of different faiths. Now, Amar bhai, thank you so very much for being on the show. It was an absolute
It
delight.
was my pleasure also to talking to you, and my appreciation of your effort. You're doing a great job, and keep it on.
Thank you. That's all we have from Washington Roundtable. Take good care of yourself. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.